So it's been a few weeks since the last video, and it's also been a few weeks since I've done any hunting at all. And Amy and I have just kind of made the conscious decision to just back out, stay clear of our properties, and we're going to do some, if we want to take a couple more does on our farms, it'll be late muzzleloader or even the high power doe season coming up here in January. But 2 days from now is our late muzzleloader season opens, and I just kind of wanted to go over our strategy going into the muzzleloader season. And then I kind of wanted to show you my setup, my muzzleloader setup, just quickly. So I plan on start hunting the late muzzleloader season on Monday in 2 days, and my strategy will be primarily to bounce around. Even if I feel like it's a low percentage sit, I still want to get in 3 more weeks of hunting to get kind of my to get my hunting time, my tree stand time in for the year. And not that I won't be trying to kill a buck, but a lot of what I'm going to be doing is scouting for Lily, my daughter. She comes down, she'll be coming down and hanging out with us and doing some muzzleloader hunting probably right after Christmas. I don't know if it'll be right on the 26th, but she's got about a week of vacation. She's going to muzzleloader hunt with me, and then we'll probably get serious. Then we'll try and put something down. So right now, if I had to say, is there a specific buck that I wanted to kill? There's really only 2 that come to mind, and there might be another one or 2 that maybe show up that are from outside the area. I always look for these bucks that are not really core to our hunting area. I'm sure it's in their home range, but they show up for our really good habitat in our food sources. We have standing beans and standing corn now for late season. So if I see a non-core buck show up, that obviously is a buck I'll take. But otherwise, there's really 2 bucks. On the cabin farm, there's this really big mainframe 10-pointer, and I passed him last year during late muzzleloader. And we didn't really have a lot of pictures of him last year, and again this year he showed back up, and we got pictures of him in September and early October, and nothing since. But my gut tells me he's still alive. So I have phenomenal habitat over there. I got beans and corn over there. And last year I actually saw him stand up out of his bed on one of my edge feathering projects, walk through some tall native grasses, and then end up feeding out on some corn and beans in front of me, and I let him go. So that'll be a buck that I would target just because I have some history with him, and I think he's going to be tough to kill because he's only around really early, and then it seems like maybe his core moves, and then he's around late again. So if he shows back up, I'll probably take him. And then here at home is Kaminsky. So Kaminsky is a buck I filmed last year during late muzzleloader also, and I passed him up. Beautiful mainframe 10-pointer. And then he disappeared on me. I didn't see him, but I know he made it because I saw him in late muzzleloader. Around here, there's a tremendous amount of pressure during the shotgun seasons, and once it gets to late muzzleloader, you just don't see a lot of hunting pressure. So I'm pretty sure he made it, and he did. We started getting pictures of him here, 2-3 weeks ago, right behind the house. So the other thing is we have a bunch of cameras out, and I think the majority of the cameras, the batteries are dead. We got a couple cell cameras that have not sent us a picture, and they're supposed to send a picture at least one a day to show that they're good. And the battery showed that it was dead here probably 3-4 weeks ago already. We haven't gotten any pictures from those cameras. My regular non-cell cameras, my traditional cameras over at the cabin farm and behind the house, I haven't checked those forever. I'm assuming the batteries are dead on those also. And I'm okay with that. I know what's in the area, and they're either going to show up or they're not. So my strategy for late muzzleloader now is to sit my standing corn and beans here behind the house and at the cabin farm. And if I have to, I'll get off the corn and the beans, and I'll try and set up in between their bedding and their feeding. And what I found, I am not one to say that deer move better when it's cold or on a cold front or when there's snow. So radio collared studies, there's been some pretty good radio collared studies now that show that's just not the case. But what I will argue is in the late muzzleloader season, or late season in general, if you can get some cold weather and some snow, really I think snow is the difference, 3-4 inches of snow, I think what that does do is it narrows down the food possibilities for deer. So if it's warm and you don't have any snow on the ground, it just seems like the deer are a little bit more spread out and they have more food choices available to them. They don't have to expand a lot of energy looking for that food because it's warm and there's just a lot of browse available. Maybe there's some clover still they can get at. I have rye cover crops behind the house, so they're probably getting that. But once you get some cold and some snow, it seems like they really key in on those soybeans and corn. So to me, that makes it a little bit easier of a hunt. So that'll be kind of our strategy. When Lily shows up, it'll be mostly sitting our blinds, overlooking destination food. So this is the one time a year where we will go in and we'll specifically sit over destination food. So all of archery season, up until this point, we rarely will sit our destination food sources, and we'll save that bed to feed pattern. We'll give them that destination food until this time of year when we can come in with the late muzzleloader. We'll come in with the muzzleloader during late muzzleloader season and take a shot. Our blinds are typically set up as far back as we feel comfortable taking that shot. So we're kind of away from the food when we can. Behind the house here, the one blind is actually set up for Amy for bow season as well, so that's closer. But at the cabin farm, both of the plots are kind of far out. But having said that, the longest shot is about 150 yards. So with that, I just want to go into my muzzleloader setup for this year, and it's not a lot different than years past, and I'll explain the difference. And the one thing I do want to mention is I am not a gun enthusiast. And when I say that, what I mean is I don't know a lot about muzzleloading and a lot about guns and calibers and powder combinations with different bullets. There's people who know this stuff a lot better than I do. I know enough to make myself very accurate and to put down deer and be accurate, out to 150 yards. So this is my setup. I used to use American Pioneer, the 50 grain pellets, and I just can't find it anymore. So now I'm using White Hots, and I've been using those. These are 50 caliber, 50 grain pellets, and I use 100 grains. So 2 of those pellets. For bullets, I used to use these Hornady SST Sabbats, 250 grain. And I really liked the accuracy and how easy these were to load. But I really questioned, one, they're lead, and I'm trying to get away from lead. Going with an all copper, solid copper bullet. And I just didn't seem like I got a lot of expansion with those. Blood trails were not good at all. So I'm trying these Hornadys. Last year, I went with these Barnes. Last year, I went with these Barnes 100% copper Sabbat Spitfire TMZ expanders from Barnes. And I really liked them for about one shot. And if you get any kind of powder residue at all, the fit was so tight that I really had a hard time getting that bullet down in my muzzleloader. So much so that I'm really not going to use those anymore. Now this year, I'm using the same, it's a similar bullet. It's a Barnes 250 grain Sabbat, 100% copper, but it's the Spitfire TEZ. And these just load just a little bit easier than the TMZ. And I really like them. So I shot maybe 7 or 8 shots here the other day, and I like the groups that I got with them. So I'll be going with that. I'm using Remington 209 primers or Winchester 777 209 primers, and I haven't seen any difference with my groups, the amount of unburnt powder in my barrel or residue. So I'm kind of using those primers interchangeably. And then the one thing that I do is those White Hots come with these nice plastic containers for the powder. And what I do is when they get some empty ones, then I just load it backwards so that if I need a second shot, I can take the tape off and put that down. I got the powder, will just go right down the barrel, and I can load that Sabbat in the bottom. Now I'm shooting a 50 caliber Thompson Center. I've had this gun for almost 20 years. I'm thinking maybe 2005-ish is when I got this gun, and I really like it. It's easy to load. It's an inline 50 caliber muzzleloader, and again, I'm not a muzzleloader enthusiast. It's my hunting tool, and that's about as far as I go with it. This is a 3x9, and I think you pronounce it conus. And my son put this scope on. If I was going to upgrade this muzzleloader, I would maybe go with like a 4-12 scope, but I have a hard time spending even $150 on a scope because I just don't know that that's going to get me a buck. So my daughter's killed a couple bucks with this gun. I have not. I have never killed a buck with a muzzleloader, and it's primarily because I just pass them. Once they make it until late muzzleloader, December, January, a part of me knows they're going to make it till next year, or high likelihood, so I let them go. But we'll see if I take one or not this year. So the only upgrade I would make with this muzzleloader is maybe go to a 4-12 if I was going to buy new. And this has the reticle with the, I think it's called a BDC reticle for going down range. I don't like that. I like a standard scope with crosshairs. And then what I do is I sight in. I don't know if you can see this or not, so I'll read it off. But I know with 100 grains of powder and a 250 grain bullet, like these Spitfire TEZs, if I sight my gun in at plus 3 inches at 75 yards, plus 3.5, 4 inches at 100 yards, then I'm good out to 150 yards. And I got that written on the buttstock. I don't know if you can see that or not. So I know I don't have to worry. This is kind of the same principle I use with archery with one pin. I know I'm good out to a certain distance using one pin. It's the same thing with this muzzleloader. So I know basically from 40 or 50 yards all the way out to 150, that's all I'm this much difference in where that bullet's going to be. So I know that, if it's at 75 yards, I can hold just a little low. If it's at 150, I'm dead on. And that's kind of what I like. I don't like using the different crosshairs. I always like using the center. And again, I'm not a firearm expert. This is just what I'm using and what's worked for me. And what I should say, worked for my kids, Forrest and Lily, because they've killed way more deer late muzzleloader hunting than I have. So that's kind of the plan. I got 2 bucks in mind. We'll see what shows up. And I'm going to try and do more update videos than the weekly ones that I did during the archery season. But we'll see what happens. I'm not going to let trying to update videos more often ruin my hunting experience. So we'll see if it ends up being where it's starting to cut into my hunting experience, I'll back off. But my goal is to do a little bit more than weekly updates. So 2 days from now, muzzleloader starts, and we'll see what happens. I'm pretty excited. There's at least a couple good bucks that I'm willing to hunt. I'm willing to shoot, and it always seems like there's one that shows up that you kind of unexpected because our habitat and our food sources this late in the year with standing beans and corn is just it's better than most neighbors have on their farms right now. So thanks for watching, and we'll be back with some late muzzleloader action.